Hey YouTubers, first off, there are no harmonicas in this video. I know that's what my channel's about, uh, but I'm making this video because I had to replace a part on my furnace, and I couldn't find anywhere online that was explaining this. So for the next guy that runs into this problem, I'm going to make a video. The problem was, um, when the thermostat told the furnace to kick on, I was getting a loud humming noise, and then nothing would happen, and it would kick off after a bit, and this little indicator light in here would be flashing 3 times and stop, 3 times and stop, and that let me know that 3 flashes, my combustion air switch failed to close, it says. That's this guy here, and what it's doing is there's a motor here inside this tube that it's a vent boost. It boosts up here to up there, and when that motor is running, then there's a tube here and a tube here, and it creates a pressure difference because the blower's running in there, and that pressure difference operates this diaphragm, and then that tells the computer in here that this thing's working, that the vent booster is working. If it doesn't work, you get a fault code. So either this switch could be bad, and it wasn't. I took a meter and used that, and or this motor could be bad, and that's what was humming. The motor was froze. You can also I took a meter, and you could check the connection there. It was getting the 120 volts. It just wasn't running. Now, what I did do, this is a new one, but in the meantime, what I did do is I just took these screws off, took this off, and I was able to reach up inside there with a screwdriver and spin the blades on the motor, which freed it up, and the thing started working. Now, maybe it would have worked the rest of the season. Maybe it just froze up over the summer. I don't know. I didn't trust it for, when it gets to be 10 degrees in January. So I went ahead and replaced this. Here's the old one, and you can see little fan blade in there and a little AC motor in there. And so I was able to just reach up, once I took those screws off, I was able to reach up in there and spin it with a screwdriver, and away it went. My problem was how to replace this thing. Here's the part. There's the part numbers right there. It's called a combustion air booster. There's the Coleman part numbers. I was able to get this for 88 bucks, a new one. But I couldn't, I didn't see how you get that out of there, because especially with this thing here. Anyway, here's how it works. You turn the power off here, and probably want to turn the gas off down here. Well, what you do is you get, I believe these are 5/16, and see, they're back here too. So I had to get an extension. I got a 1/4-inch drive extension, a little 1/4-inch drive wrench, and 5/16, and I took these off, and then this piece here comes down, and when this comes down, then you can bring this down. Of course, you got to disconnect these wires and the hoses first. This comes down, you got this much play. When this comes down, then this will come down. These two will separate. As you can see here, there's a this fits up inside there. There's a smaller, little bit smaller piece that fits up inside of there, and so it sticks up that far inside of there. So you drop this down. When you drop this down, you're going to get about an inch here or so, and this tube here just pushes on up here at the top. So this one here, you just swing it out enough to clear this and drop it down, set it aside, and then this thing will lift straight up out. It'll disconnect from here. These just push fit together. I didn't see any kind of sealant or anything on there. And then once you take that out, then the new one, you push it in there, and you put the push these together, not real tight yet because you still need some wiggle room. And then you're going to take this and push it in on the top, swing it over, and then raise this one up onto there. Now the real trick is, that was all real easy. The trick is, I might have to get the flashlight on here. No, that's making it worse. Okay. Real trick is, all the way around here, you see there's a gasket. It's like a felt gasket. And I found that part online. They're about 30 bucks for the gasket. But I didn't damage mine. I was able to reuse it, but the problem is it came off with the thing. So I had to be very careful lining up the gasket again. And at the same time, I'm holding all this together. Yes, it takes about 4 hands, and I only had 2, so that's why it was not very fun. There were little holes where the screws had been in, so I was very careful to line this up to where it's all sticking out the way it was before, just a little bit, and get in the same holes and screw them in. Then when all that was finally lined up and they were all back in to place, then before I tighten them down, then you got to push this whole thing up, hold it up as tight as you can, because you don't want gaps here and gap here and a gap up there, because you just tighten them up, that everything's kind of loose, and this will wiggle around and that, because you got a gap in there. So shoved it all up together, and then of course this takes 3 hands to hold all that and tighten these up then. But then I went around, tightened them up. I didn't crank down on them real tight. Before I took them out, I checked to see how tight they wore, and mine were actually, I thought they was a little bit loose. But you don't want to take a wrench and tighten real tight on them. I snugged them up. I actually got them a little bit more snug than how they came out. They might have worked their way loose. Anyway, it's been tested now. It works just fine. And this one, the motor is held in on this one with screws. And I'm going to take this one apart and clean up that motor and lubricate it, and then I'll have a spare for the next time this happens. This one here that I got in my hand, this one's 5 years old. This furnace is 5 years old. We bought it new 5 years ago. While I've got this thing going, this is a Coleman furnace, and while I got this thing going, I'm going to show you one more little trick in case you got one like this and you've had this problem. Back here on top of this box where there's a blower. Anyway, back there's a switch right there, and if this thing gets too hot, that switch will trip and it won't run. And we had that problem one winter. And there's a little button on the top of there. If you push that, you're in business again. What happened was this thing had been running. the furnace was, the flames were going, the furnace was blowing and everything. It was winter time, and the power went out. And so everything quit. Well, when everything quit, this thing was down here in the bottom. It's real hot, and the heat made its way up to here, and that switch tripped. And so then when the power came back on, we didn't have any heat. And that took me a couple of hours to figure that one out. So I'll let you know about that one in case you got a furnace like this. If it goes out while the furnace is running, that switch might trip, and all you gotta do is reset it. I had two little minor issues putting this thing in. One, this tube was on very loose. And then I didn't know that if you just barely touched it, it would come back off. I think it kind of stretched out being on there. So I cut off a little bit on the end here, and so then it pushed on a little tighter. And another issue I had was with the connectors. On the old one, see, we got a kind of a D shape there. And so the power connectors that went into here were shaped like this with these two corners down here. Had the two 90-degree corners. The one that they shipped me, the spade connectors worked, but I don't know if you can tell this, they're oval, no squared corners. And so on the two corners, on the other one, you can't put the square peg in the round hole, so to speak. So I had to take a file and round off those 90-degree edges on two of the corners. And then I was able to shove those together. So that's just two little minor issues I had. But we're in business again. And so if you ever have to replace one of these, that's how it's done. There is a, inside of here, there's a, what do they call it, igniter. And I've been told they're fragile. You need to be careful that you don't bang them into something, break them or whatever. So I was careful not to move this any more than I absolutely had to, because there is an igniter in there. And when I bought the motor, I actually ordered a new igniter because I had been told that the igniter is fragile, and also if the igniter goes out in January when it's 10 degrees out, you're going to be cold. So I got a spare one, and the igniter was like 30 bucks. So anyway, that might help you if you ever need to replace that. That's how I managed to do it. Bye.